Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Teamwork a Better Way. I'm Christian Napier, and I am joined by the world traveler extraordinaire, Spencer Horn. Spencer, how are you doing today?
I am great. I am so excited to be with you today, Christian, and our guests. We have multiple guests today. And I'm excited to be back in our hometown. We're been on the road a little bit. It's been a great couple of weeks.
All right. Well, you got to give me the deets. Where have you been?
Last week, Jan and I, we were in Somerset, New Jersey for a bit. We flew into Long Island, went to Manhattan, and then Somerset, New Jersey, and then went back down to Manhattan and spent several days there. We had a blast. So we were there from, about 6 days. And then this week I've been in Cincinnati.
All right, man. You've been all over the place, racking up
what
the
about
miles.
you? What have you been doing?
I'm just here doing my thing with the state of Utah, having a lot of fun with AI, so I can't complain. Been lots of fun. Any weekend plans?
This weekend, I've just got Ty has actually teased me in the past about not having a book, so I'm finishing my book tomorrow, and we'll talk more about books later today. So I've got some work to do tomorrow. I'm going to go mountain biking tomorrow morning, and then I'm working on finishing my book.
Well, that sounds awesome. I'm just going to be working out in my yard, I think, mostly. So that's fantastic. But we've got to get to our guests.
Yeah, we do.
Because they're amazing. This is the first time I think we've had a show like this, and we've been doing this for now more than 5 years, Spencer, right?
That's right.
Well, why don't you go ahead and introduce our very, very special guests today?
Well, I'm going to bring Ty on the screen, but to his left and right, which you'll see in just a moment, are two other special guests, which I'll talk about in a second. But Ty Bennett is a world-renowned speaker, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and he's somebody who's really been redefining leadership and high performance for today, which we're going to be talking about, especially high performance and high-performing teams. And already we got people chiming in, which they're excited to hear you, Ty. But he's going to use a dynamic blend of real-world experience, research-backed insight, which I know Christian, you've actually went out and read white papers on Ty, so I'm so excited for your questions for him. And he's going to share some of his research with us on high-performing teams that really helps organizations unlock that high performance and build stronger relationships. And it's all about sustaining impact, and that's something that I believe in so much. In addition to being a speaker and author, he just published some proprietary research on high performance, which I was just talking about, and he's going to share a little bit about with us. He's written several books, including The Power of Storytelling, which I have right here. He's written Partnerships is the New Leadership and The Power of Influence. And his books have been widely adopted. And I didn't know this at graduate programs and university courses around the world, helping shape the next generation of leaders and influencers. And he started as an entrepreneur at 21 years old. He and his brother built a business that really a direct sales business that made over $20 million annually. And they did that across 37 countries. And they've duplicated hundreds and hundreds of leaders, and it really helped them to develop their sales skills. So I love that entrepreneurial experience and leadership experience that he brings. And he's been named, I think this is really cool. His entrepreneurial success, Christian, and those listening, led him to be recognized as one of the top 40 under 40 and dubbed one of the 10 coolest entrepreneurs in Utah. I don't know if Tanner and Drew think he's that cool, but we'll find out. But today, he's also the owner of the largest Ninja Warrior gym in the world. I've been to it, and it is cool. I actually saw him do one of his keynotes there, and he applies the principles of resilience, adaptability, and peak performance in both business and athletics. And he's the founder of Leadership Inc. And not only that, he actually teaches other speakers around the world with his speaking business how to be relevant speakers. Maybe he can share a little bit about that. So he's still that entrepreneur doing great things. He's spoken over 2,000 audiences, now 2001 with our audience today. I bet he doesn't count that, but I am. And to drive strategic engagement, boost sales, and inspire true leadership. So master storyteller, incredible speaker, friend, Ty. Welcome.
Thank you. That was too much of an introduction, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, we also have to. I'm gonna if I put your boys on, it'll mute me. So I'm just gonna have to. Everyone's gonna have to take my word for it. But we have Drew on the screen on the left, who's 14, and he's been on American Ninja Warrior Junior, and he's a top ranked athlete. He's been, he's a pro competitor. He loves sushi. I'm so excited to hear what's his favorite fish. And then on the screen on your right, we have Tanner, who's the 16-year-old who is a sophomore in high school. He last year competed in the ninja competition, came in 15th in the world in 2024. That is a huge, huge accomplishment. And he's, at 16 years old, he's already an experienced dater in high school. So men in demand. We're so glad to have all three of you here with us. So my first question, Ty, talk to us about what started the research, and tell us a little bit about this. What was your motivation to do this high performance team research? Tell us about that. Start us off and how you got into this.
Yeah, so you mentioned my background is as an entrepreneur. I've built several businesses and then transitioned that into speaking and training. I've written several books sharing some of my experiences and insights and speaking to working with teams, leaders, sales teams, all sorts of groups all over the world. And then in the process of that, these two, they found the sport Ninja Warrior. I don't know if you've seen that sport, the show, it's awesome. But they watched the show and they became obsessed with the sport. And in that process, they became, over the last several years, have become elite athletes. Some of the top ranked ninjas in the world, competing all over the country. And as I watched Ninja Warrior, I found that it uniquely illustrated some of the principles that I teach. Like in a sport that you can use a metaphor of sports in lots of different ways, but I think ninja is unique in that way. It's so visual, and there are some things I kept finding myself having conversations with my boys in the gym that were the same conversations I was having with teams and organizations and executive leaders on stage. And so we decided that we were going to explore this a little bit more. And it led us down a road where we actually worked with a research team out of Austin, Texas, PhDs, and helped design a research study on high performance. And Tanner and Drew are co-authors of the study, helped me write the white paper, and we actually speak all over the world sharing this idea. And ninja is just fun because it unlocks the metaphor. And in fact, we put a ninja rig on stage. I know, Spencer, you've seen this before. And these two are swinging on bars and doing stuff and sharing their insights in the process. But the research it's interesting because we all have our opinions or thought process on high performance. And high performance is such an uncommon thing that I wanted to research it because what we've found in the research is that there's commonalities that high performers have and that we can adopt and that can add to our level of performance, whether that's in an individual role, in a leadership role, as a team, or in whatever capacity.
Well, that is a great story, and Ty, I'm sorry to say, is we've got some people that are joining us we have people from Houston, where they say it's dang hot and sunny. We've got people from San Antonio, Texas, that are chiming in, Kevin, and they're asking. We need you guys to speak really loud, so join up. Christian, what do you got?
Well, one of the questions I have is, the study is co-authored by you and your sons, which I think is really interesting, right? So I'm curious to hear the story about how that came about, how the three of you decided, hey, let's do this thing, because it's not a common thing to see, a study that's co-authored by a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. As a father I've got 4 kids, and all of my kids have worked for me at some point, and in their upbringing. I'm really curious about how that came about, how you decided to collectively, the three of you, do this study.
Well, I'll share my thoughts first, and then Tanner and Drew can share some of theirs. But from the get-go, when we decided to give a speech, I asked them how they wanted to approach it, and what we came down to is they are partners in the speech. They are contributors, not just in like showing up and showing their skill, but in all of it, which meant that they were investing into the rig that we put on stage and some of those things. And so when the study came about, I looked at it, because we've approached this whole thing as a partnership, that they were partners, and they loved the idea of it. So they were willing to invest in the cost of it, and saw the potential of it, all of those things. And I don't know, they might be the youngest co-authors of a national study and a white paper that exists, but one of my friends who owns the research firm that we worked with, it was actually partly his idea, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I've got goosebumps, because your boys could actually co-author this with you and share their insights and have their perspective, because they're looking at it from an elite athlete perspective, where I look at it from, an entrepreneur and leadership perspective." And so I think it's fun to blend those mixes. Guys, for you, Tanner, what was your experience with it, or what'd you get out of being part of that process?
I thought, like, going into it, it was really cool being able to be a co-author for a white paper, especially at my age. Like, that was really cool thinking about it for me, how many doors that opens and how it can create an opportunity, like with college applications and just leading into more things in the future. Starting this young is really cool for me to be able to have more opportunities in the future. But then I loved learning about all the research that we did and all the points that we were making in our speech and that I was learning in Ninja were being validated by this research that we were doing, which was really cool because we were a part of the research. We helped we helped prepare the questions that we asked the people in our study. And I thought it was so cool seeing all of that come together.
Awesome. Drew, what else for you?
Yeah, it truly was like an amazing experience to put that all together, see how it works. It was just really cool and enriching to learn about that process. But also, I've loved having that to be able to also amplify our speeches. My dad said we are like partners in that, and that's been cool to see how it's taken that speech that we do so often to the next level. And I've really liked that. And it's been cool to see all the different findings and just how incredible the national study really is.
I put up one of the comments from one of our listeners, Kevin, a minute ago, and he said something that I 100% agree with. He says that sports is such a wonderful teacher of life, and there's so much. It's exactly what you were saying in the beginning, Ty. There's, you're watching this ninja warrior, and there's so much overlap into just everyday business life. And I know, Christian, you're so passionate about this. The lessons that we learn in sports are not only metaphorical, there's so much crossover that can benefit all of us. And so my question is, well, first of all, Tanner, you said something about you asked questions. How did you come up with those questions? And was it just, tell us where those questions came from? Was it a collaboration, or did you just have ideas? And then tell us about the research. We're dying to know.
Okay, so for us, when we started our research paper, we started by having a call and just talking about like what we wanted to do with it, what we wanted to research, and we decided we wanted to research high performance. So when we did that, we had to come up with what questions we wanted to ask to figure out like what drives high performance, what stops high performance. So Drew, my dad, and I had like brainstorm sessions where we would try to come up with good ideas on what we want to ask, so then we can get the right answers that we can use and like get the right data that we can use in our speeches, which was really cool. Yeah, we would ask like, what do you think stops high performance? What starts it? What do you do? What do you not do? And different questions like that.
And then we submitted them to the PhD group, and they kind of fine-tuned the process and then took it out to, a sample group of working America. That was kind of our focus, is making sure that we had a good statistical valuation of what working America looks like, full-time employees in lots of different industries across the country, representing every demographic, and came back with some really interesting results. And the group that helped us put it together, they gave us all of the data and helped us sort through it. And then from that, we pulled the key findings to put together in the white paper that we wrote. And some of the main ideas that we think were the most applicable to the most people, to document those, and then we share a lot of those on stage as well.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see like those answers come in based on the questions that we asked, like watching the whole process and then seeing like the results and kind of seeing like those wow factors, those crazy answers that just shock audiences across the country. And I think that's probably my favorite part of the study, just because it amplifies all that we do in such a cool way.
So I want to hear that shocking stuff, Christian, but I have just one follow-up question. So to our listeners, normally, we have this podcast a little earlier in the day, but the reason why we're having it at this time is because we wanted to have Drew and Tanner join us. And as you can tell, they're obviously dedicated to their own self-development and learning. So my question to you both is, how has been going through this process actually helped you in your academics? I mean, think about, you have to write papers and persuasive arguments and theses for school. Has there been any benefit to you in how you approach your homework?
I can go first. I guess for me, a lot of what I've used from the study, I think there's definitely been some stuff with like helping write different parts of the white paper, how to word certain things, getting better at that. But a big thing that I've liked from the white paper is reading it and seeing some of those findings, and then looking at my own life with my school and with my ninja and with the points that we make on stage and seeing if I'm actually doing those, if I'm living up to what I'm teaching. And I think that's really improved me as a student and as an athlete and just as a person in general to make my life more high performing, because I'm giving these questions to audiences and then putting them back to myself to see how I can improve.
Yeah.
Dan, what about for you?
There's been like very specific findings on high performance that have helped me in my life, and especially in my studies about like just approaching things differently, especially with my view on failure. This white paper has helped me adjust my view on failure a lot and approach it with a lot more of a growth mindset than a closed off mindset, which has been really cool for me going through. This is my first year of high school, and going through my first year of high school where there's a lot of change and a lot of failure that I experienced, then being able to approach it with this less of a fear because of the data that we learned, but more of embracing the failure and learning from it.
Oh, Ty, I got it. I just got it. Can I just piggyback on that, Ty? Okay. I love that so much, Tanner, and let me tell you why. For 7 years, I recruited for the University of Utah, the Eccles School of Business, kids out of high school. And one of the biggest challenges we see for kids coming out of high school that are high performers, they're the top tier of grades and athletes, not so much athletes, but a lot of times kids that are academically just high performing, they get into an environment where they're no longer the top 3 or 5% because they have to compete with other high performers. And they get their first B, or they're not in the top of the class, and in a way they look at that as a failure, and they're struggling with anxiety and all this pressure they're putting on themselves because they haven't learned that, hey, you can overcome a failure, or you don't have to be at the top of everything all the time. I mean, that's something that I think is so important for kids to learn today. So I'm so glad to hear you say that. Sorry, Ty. I mean, that to me, I'm passionate about that.
No, I'm with you on it. I was going to say these two have worked through a lot. I think sometimes I use the findings as like reminders. Hey, we talk about this. Make sure you're doing this. So it's probably used against them sometimes. But they both just finished school literally today, like end of the year, and both finished with straight A's and have worked extremely hard. But they're seeing that, putting in the work. Drew, you were going to say something else about failure.
Well, just like a lot of the findings found around failure are super cool. Dad, should I share any yet? Or
yeah,
if
you want to.
So the coolest finding, at least to me, we share this on stage, is that most people, what's the exact?
75%.
75% of people know that failure is super important. Like embracing failure is a key aspect of high performance. But only, is it 41? Right? Mm-hmm. But only 41% say that they do it regularly. And we talk about on stage this performance gap, and like that, how big is 34% of that difference between what you think you should do and what they actually do around failure. I think that's really cool to see, like how important failure is versus how much people do it, and how like closing that performance gap is key to high performance.
And going off of that, that's like I was kind of like saving that data. That's been that change for me this year, and like has been helping me in my every aspect of my life, is being able to become like leave that 34% of people who didn't embrace failure, like be able to be the person who I go into something, I'm like, you know what, I might mess up, but that's okay because I'll learn from it and become better because of it.
I think this is fantastic conversation. Spencer, if you recall, a few years ago, we had Scott Hamilton on our podcast, a former gold medal Olympian figure skater. I bring it up because he told us that his coach estimated that he fell on the ice more than 41,000 times in his life.
That's
You know,
awesome.
and so you got to get back up if you're going to succeed. And I've always remembered that, what he said. I want to come back to the results of the study. You've talked about failure. Tanner, you mentioned that some of the things validated what you've already experienced in your own life. And so this question is for each of you. What is one thing that came out in the study that validated what you already knew? And what is one thing that genuinely surprised you?
Do you want to start?
I'm trying to think of a good one.
Okay, I'll start. One thing that validated, a lot of the work that I've done is in leadership, and I has spent a lot of time talking to companies about the importance of leadership. We found in the study that 36% of people have left a company that they liked to follow a leader that they loved. Right? Even if they liked the company, if that leader meant that much to them, that they would move jobs, move organizations to follow a leader to another organization. I think great leadership creates loyalty. But on the flip side of that, we found that more than 40% of people have actually left a company and a job that they enjoyed because they had a leader they didn't like. And so just the importance of leadership, I think, is a huge one that was validating to the work that I've been doing for 15 plus years. And to see that come out in research, just kind of where that was validated. What about for you guys?
For me, so we talk about both these in the speech, but they're big ones for me. So we talk about the biggest driver of high performance is preparation. And I feel like that was pretty validating for me because I've seen that with Ninja, that when I'm performing at my best, it's when I'm preparing at my best. When I like go in the gym and I really train, I do workouts and I run courses and I push myself, I compete the best usually. And then the one that was kind of surprising to me, I guess it just has never been like a key thing that I've looked at, is how important adaptability is. I'm kind of spacing like the exact percentage that I know.
76%.
76% of Americans know it's crucial, right?
Yeah, so our research shows that adaptability is the main skill set for success in today's world. And we could dive into that a little bit more, but that's
and that one, I guess I'd never really seen it as important of a thing as it really is. So I've been trying to focus on that in different areas and looking at just like being able to have that mindset of just being able to adapt quickly and without frustration. And
that is such great insight. Let me share something with you, Drew. There's a study done by the Hay McBear Consulting Group, and they surveyed almost 4,000 executives around the world, and they identified 6 leadership styles: coercive, authoritative, pace-setting, democratic, affiliative, and coaching. And all of those are very different styles. So imagine a set of golf clubs, right? You have a lot of golf clubs for different scenarios. And the best leaders are able to adapt to all 6 of those weekly. Most people struggle with 2 or 3 of those styles, and they are really good at 2 or 3. But they can't adapt, as you're saying, to the situation that requires them to use a different approach. And they really struggle with that. And that's exactly in alignment with what you're saying. The best leaders are able to adapt their leadership style. So I love what you're saying because it is so strong. Sorry, Ty, did I cut you off?
No, well, Tanner, share what stood out to you in the study. What's one of the findings that you helped you or stood out to you the most?
Drew kind of stole the one that I was going to go with, but I really, really love how learning how important preparation is, because I feel like that's one for me that I slack on sometimes, because it's one of the most important things that you can do. Like, preparation is one of the most important drivers of high performance, and just the study showing that if you don't prepare, you don't have an option. And we share in the speech the story of uh, Nike and Steph Curry. Do you know that's the story where Steph Curry went to Nike and they were renewing his deal, and they didn't prepare at all for the meeting to sell him because they thought they had it in the bag. So instead of preparing him his own slides, they called him the wrong name. They called him Stephon, right? Stephon the entire meeting, and said Kevin Durant's, and they used Kevin Durant's slides for their meeting, and that made it so then he walked out and said, "I'm not doing this," and signed a deal with Under Armour. That ended up costing Nike $14 billion to this day. It's like preparation can cost you $14 billion, and it's one of the most important things you can do.
We got to talk about preparation, Christian.
Yeah, we'll go for it.
So you're so right, Tanner. I mean, that is, I told you I just came back from Cincinnati, and I work with business leaders all over the world, and I teach them about an accountability process, how to delegate, which I find is one of the top challenges that a lot of leaders have. But here's the problem: I teach them a methodology, and then they go back to doing what they've always done, because when we practice some of the skills, they say, well, it doesn't feel natural. What does feel natural the first time you do
Nothing.
it? Nothing. But it doesn't. It says it feels forced. It's not. They want to go into a difficult conversation like the Steph Curry thing, and just have it be natural. No, it's only natural when there's muscle memory, right? When you've prepared, when you've done it, when you've repetition over and over and over again. And people think, well, then it's not going to be natural. That's exactly wrong. I mean, I love the whole idea of sharing. If you go to a movie, do either of you guys like movies?
Yes. I love movies.
Do you realize that movie is almost word for word scripted?
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like it, though, does it? I mean, it feels so natural, this interaction. But that's preparation, in my opinion. Right, you got Mission Impossible coming out, and I love that they show behind the scenes with, the action scenes about how they're setting those up with Tom Cruise. How much work, how much preparation goes into making it look so natural? It's all preparation.
Spencer, I make this point sometimes in our speech because we're talking about ninja warrior, right, or using that as a metaphor. And these guys are both on Instagram, have accounts where they share ninja videos, and some have gone crazy viral. Like, they have videos with 8+ million views, and it's funny to look at all the comments because they say what you just said. The two main things that I see in the comments is he's a natural, or you make that look so easy. And I always look at that and go, how do you make anything look easy? How do you make something feel natural? It takes a crazy amount of work. Like, I've seen the amount of hours they put in the gym, and trust me, when they first started, it didn't look natural, right? They were not making it look easy. And so that practice and preparation and like failing and just going through that's what mastery takes to build real skill, to perform at the highest level. And that I love that idea, because preparation has a huge cost, like Tanner talked about, and the lack of preparation if we don't do it. But you can win in those moments that matter most with just a little bit of prep work beforehand. I have a good friend who's a speaker named Phil Jones, and he speaks mostly to salespeople. And he always says, when is the worst time to think about what you want to say? And the way most people do it is we think about it in the moment, right? That is the very worst time to prepare and think about, what do I want to say? How do I want to deliver this with impact? if we spend some time in that preparation beforehand, work on those skills, put in that work, then it shows up and makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's awesome, Dad. Or I thought I had, just taking it back a step to what Tanner and Spencer were saying around like what feels natural. I think sometimes, at least in me and Ninja, but I think everyone kind of gets caught up. Once you get to a certain level, you start getting comfortable in kind of a, well, I'm like in Ninja sometimes I'll do this where it's like I'm good at this move, so I'll do that. But then I go to a different move that I'm not that good at, and I'll be like, well, it's okay. I don't really need to do that. I can just go do something that's not natural. I don't know how to do that, and I don't really need to do it. But I think when you step outside of your comfort zone, like even this week, I had an experience like that where my friend, there's this kind of move in Ninja called a coffin. It's where you lachey backwards, and I've never really been able to figure them out. So I usually kind of avoid them, If everyone's trying, like, I'll go try something else because it's not natural. But then this week, I decided that that's something I need to work past to push myself outside my comfort zone. Work through it and actually figured out how to do it pretty good because it wasn't natural, right? It wasn't comfortable, but when you work past that, that's where you get better.
That's where growth happens.
That's where growth happens when you have to choose to get uncomfortable.
Love it.
So I love these personal experiences that you are all sharing here. And Drew, in particular, you talking about, well, I don't really need to learn how to do this thing, or I don't really need that. And this takes me to a really important part of your research, your study, the white paper that you did, because you focus on these things that people need to be doing, but then you identify some of these barriers that keep people from becoming effective leaders. And the number one thing on there is making excuses. And Drew, you just talked about like, oh, well, I don't really need to do that. That's making an excuse, right? So I want you to, all of you, all three of you, talk a little bit about these barriers that prevent us from really realizing our potential to become high performers, and what you do, what you recommend people do in their lives to overcome some of the barriers that you identified in your research.
Yeah. So I'll start and you guys can add on. I'll give an overview. I think that was an important part of the research to look at not just what drives it, like what makes people move forward, but what stops people. Because I think that's where we get held up a lot and we don't focus enough time there. So making excuses, like you mentioned, Christian, was one of them. Fear of failure was a big one that comes up for people. Not being consistent in the way that we show up or the way that the work we put in, and not being open to feedback and taking other people's criticisms or feedback, in a destructive way, like not being able to use that. So, boys, what thoughts do you have around any of those in terms of barriers?
Consistency is one of the biggest ones, in my opinion, because you can show up as big as you want, but it doesn't matter if you aren't showing up consistently. It's like consistently. It's like the brushing your teeth analogy. You can, if you don't brush your teeth for a month and then brush your teeth for a day straight, it's not going to make your teeth good. You got to show up every day for those 2 minutes. And it's the same thing with anything in life, with Ninja, or with work, with school. You can't just try to get everything done right now and then not work at all. You have to show up just those unseen hours over and over and over again to be able to be one of the top performers.
One of the things we found in the research is that most people, they value intensity over consistency, when actually consistency is what moves the needle.
Yeah.
Right? Is we tend to show up in spurts aggressively, but if we'll just show up consistently, that makes a bigger difference. Drew, what about for you?
For me, around like making excuses, I think making excuses was one of the most like natural, it's easy to do, and I think we all get caught up in it, in our everyday lives and what we do, like. And I think how you kind of get past that is then finding like your reason for doing it, because it's easy, like at least for me and Ninja, it's easy to be like, I don't want to do this workout and I don't have to, that's an excuse, or, oh, I'm tired today. That I look at as like, but if I don't do a workout today, am I going to be able to compete well tomorrow? That kind of mindset of why you're doing it can help move past those excuses and push you to a different level.
Yeah, one of the things I've always told the boys in training is that your action has to match your ambition. So these two, they have pretty big ambitions. I mean, literally are like ranked in the top 10, 15 in the world in ninjas as Ninja Warrior goes. And so when they're talking about being the best in the world, I'm not real open to their excuses, right? Like if that's your ambition, then your action has to match up to that, and we have to take excuses off the table. It's cool to see some of those. Christian, I love that question on barriers. I think we could talk about that for a really long time. Right? But, those are just those little things that hold us back.
I thank you, and I want to hit on excuses for just one more second, if it's okay. I want to pull this back into just the world of leadership. There's a lot of excuses why people don't adapt, and one of them is exactly what you said, Drew. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel comfortable, and that's why I think we have this whole. This is my personal opinion. This whole embracing of the strengths-based leadership and the idea of what it means to be authentic, right? To be authentic does not mean that you are predictable, that you do the same things all the time. It means you are able to, build trust and meet the moment. And sometimes that means you do things that are uncomfortable, but it may not feel natural. Some people misinterpret. It's called the authenticity paradox, right? They think, well, I just have to be my own self. Well, my own self doesn't know how to do that move, right? So the way that you do it, you got to practice. You've got to do the thing that is uncomfortable. And I love the fact that you don't have to do it in intense, focused, I've got to fix this weakness. It's a little bit at a time. Because working on those weaknesses, if you do it consistently, it does take energy. But how much excitement and enthusiasm do you get when you get ranked 15th in the world and you're a top ranked athlete? When you put all of that effort in and you get recognized for it, it's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah. Spencer, if I can piggyback on that, I think one, I guess I haven't thought about that the way that you did with this strength-based movement, some of that authenticity. I think there is a way to use that as an excuse for sure. But I think as we talk about adaptability, because adaptability came out as basically the main skill set, the biggest skill that you need to be successful in today's space. And the key to adaptability is continuous learning. There's a great quote by a college basketball coach. He said that if you want to lead in today's world, your rate of learning has to keep pace with the rate of change. And that is the key to success, but it's the key to adaptability. If we're continually learning, growing, developing, which has to happen in today's space as a leader, we're in a changing environment. And so that growth has to continue to happen, that learning. And so there is an element of like, no, I just need to be me. Well, yeah, but you is good, but you have so much more potential, right? You have so much room for growth, and the impact that you can have as a better version of you down the line is even greater than what you can do currently.
Yeah, and I love that. Christian, I know you got something.
Oh, yeah, I think this is a fascinating conversation. One question I have is my naive perception of Ninja Warrior as I watch it on television. It's on NBC, and you see the announcers going crazy, and you see these very fit people doing these things, is that it looks on the surface like it's largely an individual sport. It's an individual effort. And so one of the questions that I've got for the three of you, but particularly Drew and Tanner, is how do you translate the learnings from your own experience, where you're focusing on your own performance, into becoming a leader and helping other people perform well? Because it's one thing to maximize your own performance, but then to take it to another level and to help other people also achieve their potential, that's something else. And so I'm curious what you've learned throughout this journey that has not just helped you become your very best, but help you help other people become their very best?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I can share on this one. So I think through Ninja, I've learned the ways that I'm pushing myself, how I'm making myself better through Ninja, because it's very individual, right? I'm figuring out what works for me and how I push myself. And then me and another coach at my gym actually started like kids competitive team at our gym, and I've taken those same things that I've learned through years of figuring out how I train, tried to apply them to them. And I take the same thing with other people, right? Just try to be a leader in the sense of I know I learned through Ninja and through all my experiences what works for me and how I've become the best version of myself, and then I try to show other people that and kind of rub that energy off, onto them to allow them to then get to that point of peak performance. And I definitely am not at peak performance, but I try my best to, keep improving every day.
But as a coach, Drew's team has grown by leaps and bounds, which is awesome.
It's been pretty cool to
the
watch.
coaching that they brought into play.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to watch because before the team was pretty. There wasn't really like for those kids. There wasn't really like a specific way that they could train. There wasn't like an organization or team. It was just kind of how they could train, and that's what I've always had. So I want to try to make them better, give them more, and it's cool. And it's been cool to see the different kids just advancing at such big rates, and how like incredible they've become as ninja, but also just as people.
Tanner, I want you to answer, but I just had a thought. So last week we were speaking for a financial services group in Minneapolis, and they operate with what they call a team relationship model. And as I was on a call with them before, and I started asking more about this team relationship model, is they have individual advisors, they have individual contributors, but they're working as a team. And when they bring other people into it, that factors in how commissions are shared, all sorts of different things. But I was like, Ninja's the perfect model for that, because you have these highly competitive athletes. I mean, they're competitive. They want to win, right? And they want to get after it just like in any other sport. But Ninja is the most collaborative sport I've ever seen. Even though it's an individual sport, ninjas have adopted a mentality that it's not you versus your competitor, it's you versus the course. And because of that, they share with each other, they support each other in a different way than most sports do. And so what I see in Ninja is what I think works in teams so well is the combination of competition or competitiveness and collaboration coming together. And that creates a really unique opportunity for high performance. Tan, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was gonna share that actually, but like that exact thing. So I want to go a little more in depth on that.
But you were going to say it better.
Yeah,
probably.
Of course. Come on. But while Ninja is an individual sport, it almost feels like a team sport to me in a lot of aspects, because there'll be times there's this thing that we call beta. It's just different techniques on how to do an obstacle. Because people in Ninja Warrior have embraced that mentality, there have been competitions where I've come off, I had a horrible run, I missed an obstacle, and the first thing that I do after being like, well, that was bad, I go up to my friend who's about to run and I say, hey, don't grab it like how I grabbed it, grab it like this so then you can beat me. Which I think is so cool, being able to learn that it doesn't hurt me to help others, and it just all comes around, and then other people give me advice before I run, and we all just work together to be able to become the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. There's obviously definitely a sense of competitiveness, but it's cool how ninjas all collaborate, but it's also just cool they all like love each other. We're all happy to be there. Some of my best friends, actually probably my best friends in the world, have all come through Ninja, because that's like the people I train with are the same people I compete against, but it just has become like it's like hanging out with my friends when I go compete instead of this super intense, scary thing. How it kind of started when I was younger, it seemed so intense, so scary, and now like we're cracking jokes while we're running. It's just such a fun, happy environment, and it feels like a team, but really you're competing against each other. It's incredible.
think that goes back to what you said earlier, Ty, that, the research shows that people follow those leaders that they are connected to, that they trust, that they believe in. And when you are willing to share what you know, some leaders are reluctant because if I give you my secrets, then you're going to beat me. That's that competition that comes in. But what actually happens is when you develop others, you're developing others as leaders. And think about, I personally talk about my mentor all the time, how grateful I am for all that he invested in me. You can be that for other people, and they feel that about you. And that just builds a level of trust and desire to, you can perform even higher and better because you're more open to that feedback now that somebody's intention is to help you and not sabotage you. We have a couple of comments. Go ahead, Ty.
No, go to those comments. We're great.
So Kevin's been jumping in here. I want to say a few things. And basically, love the comment that your actions must align with your ambition. Fantastic and simple to internalize. And then he said, he's been commenting here. So wise, and it doesn't hurt to help others. Rare air right there. So good job, you guys.
If you were talking about a mentor, and Tanner, if Tanner be willing to share, there's a competitor, who came to our gym. His name's Evan Andrews, who kind of stepped in at a time that, through this process, like, it sounds great to say they're both like incredible ninjas, but trust me, this process isn't smooth like any other, right? There's ups and downs, there's hard things, times you want to quit, there's times that you literally have broken bones. Like, it's been a tough process, but Evan kind of stepped in as a mentor for Tanner, and I think changed things in a big way for you. If you'd be willing to share a little bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. So Evan came in, he moved to Utah fall of last year. It was at a time with Ninja where I was really struggling to see growth in myself. I was struggling a lot with comparison, especially with Drew, because Drew was doing all these things. He was going above and beyond and getting to that next level. And I was just staying where I was at. I wasn't performing the way I wanted to. It got to the point where I was fully ready to quit. Like, there was one competition that I was just like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And then Evan came in with me and helped me change my perspective. I started training with him on Tuesday nights where he would focus on me, and Drew would still be outperforming me on a lot of stuff. But instead of me focusing on that, he'd help me focus on what I was doing better and what I was improving on. And that changed the game for me. It switched from I took fourth place in this competition, I'm not a good ninja, to I took fourth place in this competition, look at how much I've grown. I love doing this. This is so much fun. And it's incredible for me because after he did that for me and helped me make that switch, it not only helped me be more at peace with where I am at in the sport, helped me want to be that for other people, helped me want to share my story to want to remove comparison. In our speech, we talk about removing comparison because I think that's such a crucial skill to learn. It can help people in their lives so much. I just want to be if he helped me and I saw how much that impacted me, how can I do that for others?
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Okay, I want to ask about that remove comparison thing a little bit more, and then Spencer, we're going to be coming close to the time, and so we'll let you get to your lightning round here in a second. But
no, this is an important topic. You take your time.
Yeah, on the remove comparison, I've been thinking about this the last few minutes as you guys have been talking, and Drew talked about when he started out, it was really scary for him, and what I wanted to ask about was the importance of empathy, because it could be really intimidating for a person who's, quote unquote, just starting out or maybe average to look at someone who is top 15 ranked in the world and try to establish a connection with this person, thinking, who am I? I'm a nobody. I don't deserve to be here. And at the same time, sometimes it can be difficult for people who are at the very top of their profession to really understand, what people who may not be as talented or may not necessarily have the level of drive that you have, for you to connect as well. So I'm curious, as you've gone through, this is for all of you, and Ty, you can talk about this too, because you established a very successful business early in your career, right? So you know it it's easy for people to say, well, he's way up there, or she's way up there, and I can never be like that. Or at the same time, I don't understand why this person's struggling. I mean, you just power through it. You just do it like I did. So, you know, how do you go about establishing this kind of mindset of empathy, uh, to not judge people, but to just be helpful and serve them?
It's a great question. I love that you asked that because more than anything, I'm curious to hear my boys talk about it and, what have you guys learned about empathy and why that's important? And it may be from Ninja, but, these guys are involved in other things, student council and other things where I think they get a lot of great leadership insight too.
Yeah. Um, well, it's just been interesting because me and Tanner have both competed together. There's been a kind of direct comparison. A question we often get asked is like, "Oh, who's better?" in that. But and it's been hard at different times. Where I'm seeing these things that Tanner can do that I can't figure out how to do, and it can be frustrating. It can be hard because I want that, and but that's like comparing. Same with Tanner, probably back to me. There's moves that I've done that he can't do, moves that he can do that I can do. But what we've tried to do, I think, is look at each other's strengths and point out that and be very, also just we've tried to build just a relationship outside of Ninja to know that no matter what happens here, we're still brothers and still love each other and are still super close friends. We've also like pointed out each other's strengths. Like Tanner can do some crazy, like his strength is out of this world. I cannot do some of the pull-ups, the pulls, and some of these moves that he can do that are just incredible. And
On the flip side of that, I can't swing like Drew does at all, and I can't make things flow together the way that he can. And it's not just It's not comparing that. It's removing that comparison, but finding that empathy where, you know what, I can't do what you do, but that's so cool that you can do it. And sometimes you can't do what I do. If we can appreciate each other and work with each other, then that's what matters.
I think that applies to most everything, any area. You could look at, whoa, I'm doing all this stuff better than this person, and then just put yourself at a higher, and then there's that instant comparison. Or you can look at the skills that they have. My dad was saying we've both been on student council, and I think that's been cool to see that come into play there because you have to appreciate everyone's strengths and see what they can do because what you can do may not be what they can do, and that can be frustrating sometimes, but you have to look at everyone's strengths and then use them to the best ability as a team. I think that's something that leaders should do is look at the strengths of what their team has and to make their team better, instead of comparing what they're not doing. Instead, it's what they can do and what they're good at.
One of the things that we've talked about a lot is that confidence, right, which is important for everybody. It's obviously important for them. If you approach a course without any confidence, good luck, right? But if you approach leadership without any confidence, or you approach sales without any confidence, confidence doesn't mean that you see yourself above other people. It means you stop comparing. And I think being able to empathize, see the good in each other, to appreciate that. And one of the things I really appreciate that I see a lot in Tanner is being able to genuinely celebrate other people. I think so often when we see other people's success, we almost get defensive, right? We downplay it, we get hurt by it, and what we're doing is comparing. Instead of celebrating, empathizing, being able to really engage with where people are. Christian, this is such an interesting topic because in my mind, I'm thinking of it in so many realms, right? In the leadership realm, in Ninja, but just in our family dynamics, right? It comes up everywhere. And so learning how to be with people, to truly try and connect with people, to empathize, to love people, to not compare, that's like the human experience right there. It's not a simple thing to do, but it makes such a big difference.
Yes, it absolutely does, and I love that story. And Tanner, I love the fact that you were starting to compare yourself from where you were before and seeing your progress. And I think that's something that is so helpful and so widely applicable to anybody. And I think there's a lot of in the world right now, there's a lot of problems with anxiety and comparison. And you look at social media, and so many people are looking at everybody's perfect life and thinking they don't have everything. And when you just start looking at yourself and how can I improve and be better than where I am today, instead of looking at what everybody else has, that's a very important takeaway. Well, we're so Christian. What do we have time for? We're kind of getting up on the hour. Should we try the lightning round? What do you think?
Maybe a couple of them.
Okay. So here we go. The first one, just really quickly. One word that defines leadership.
Loving.
Empathy.
Influence.
Your go-to mind reset when things get tough.
You can do this.
Music would be yours, I
Yeah,
think.
music.
Mine is friends, connection.
I definitely said that wrong. What I meant was like words of encouragement, like restart.
Okay, all right. We got to move on. What's one leadership myth you'd love to bust for good?
You can help others you can help others and it doesn't hurt you, like we were saying.
I love that.
I'm writing a book right now that busts the myth that micromanagement is a bad thing.
Ty, this one's for you. Most surprising lessons you've learned from your sons.
Empathy.
Your favorite moment on stage ever.
I'm trying to think.
When I beat Drew in a race.
Probably the interview we did in Canada.
Okay. What, specific speech in Canada. I'm just going to tell you, it hasn't even happened, but mine is going to happen this summer when the three of us get to be on a unique stage for the National Speakers Association.
Nice. That's all I got, Christian. Cut it short.
All right. That's fantastic. Oh, man. I've got so many more questions, but we don't have time. If Ty and Tanner and Drew, if listeners, if viewers, if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about the study, the books that you've written, the speeches that you're giving, the presentations, and how you can help others become high performers, what's the best way for folks to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, if you find me, Ty Bennett, I'm pretty easy to find, tybennett.com. That's where we have the white paper, books, all of those things. These guys you can find on Instagram, Drew Bennett and Tanner Bennett. You can look them up and find them. But yeah, we'd love to connect. Love to help any organizations have these conversations. It's fun.
And Spencer, you have been helping people around the world, organizations for decades, build high-performing teams. What's the best way for folks to reach out and connect with you?
Reach me on LinkedIn, Spencer Horn. And Christian, Ty, you know how much I love this guy. You know why. Isn't he great?
Yeah.
So now you know what I know. Rest of you who want to meet him, can they find you?
LinkedIn. Yeah, we'll just do LinkedIn. Just look Christian Napier on LinkedIn. And folks, I'm telling you, go to Ty's website, tybennett.com, download this. It's free. The white paper is free. So download it. It's just chock full of great stuff. You'll get a flavor of the things that Ty.
Maybe we can put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put a link to it. Do that. So listeners, viewers, thank you. Ty and Drew and Tanner, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners and viewers, for joining us, and we look forward to catching you again soon.